What is going on? We have Filmington, myself, as well as a good friend of mine, JT, Triple Crown 24. What's going on, JT?
Not much, man. How are you holding up here?
Doing pretty good. So in this video, we're going to be discussing some of the recent hobby events surrounding PSA, namely talking about their service level and price changes. We're also going to be talking about what's happening with COMC over the last few months. And then we're going to wrap it up by talking about some news that actually just came through, I think yesterday, the day before, about eBay's API that could affect some of the applications in the space. All right, so let's first talk about PSA. On October 1st, they announced a series of pricing and service level changes. The elimination of the economy service, which was $20 per card, 40-day service. They said it's temporary. We'll see. They also announced a 20-card minimum for the value service level orders if you're going through a group or if you have a collector's club membership. They also announced a price increase, and this was the second price increase of 2020. I think the last one was June 26th. Could be wrong on that date, but basically with ultra modern bulk, prices are changing from $12 to $15. Modern changing from $9 to $12. So modern being in between 1973 and 2016, and then vintage pre-1972 is going to be $10 per card. So there is some silver lining for customers. They announced, I believe, today that the max value on these value service levels has actually increased from $99 to $199. So, JT, what do you think about all this? Do you have any thoughts? Does it affect PSA standing in the hobby with collectors, with their competitors? What do you think about all this?
There's a lot to dissect here, and that might be putting it mildly. As someone who runs a PSA submission group and just kind of getting the feel from a lot of what they say in their emails, I believe pretty much since they returned from the shutdown due to the pandemic, they have really been playing this long game. It's more so a game of chess rather than just spur of the moment decisions. I hope for not only my sake, but the sake of everyone who uses PSA services, that is correct. But that's, again, just my opinion on it. So with the suspension of the economy level service, the reason why I believe that happened was due to the raising of the prices that we saw earlier this year when they divided the categories up. Once they lifted their suspension from the pandemic, they divided it into those categories, and now they have increased the price of first the ultra modern, because that's where they said the majority of their backlog is. Now we see them responding to the backlog of their economy level service. So I think it's sometimes really easy to think, bulk submissions, that a lot of people are submitting hundreds of cards at a time when it's pretty expensive to do so, especially if you're submitting the new stuff, the ultra modern, which according to them is what gets submitted the most often. If we take a look at that, and it's $15 a card, if you submit 50 to 99 cards, if someone's submitting on their own, it's going to be very difficult to get to 50 cards. Even if you rip a lot of wax to be able to get to 50 cards, like, you got to be pulling some good stuff, and you got to be pulling good stuff that is grade worthy, especially for the price that you're paying. So I would believe that because the bulk turnaround times have been, let's say, loose, to put it lightly, why not go with the economy submission for $5 more, where your turnaround time is going to be at least twice as fast, maybe might even be 3 times as fast if you get a submission that really gets backlogged, or it's one of those that takes over 100 business days, for $5 more, especially if you have cards that are pushing that $99 max value. And I think a lot of people who have smaller orders thought it would be better to go with that $20 option where there is no minimum, you have a faster turnaround time, and it's going to get logged into their system faster. And the economy is still pretty affordable. So I do believe that the economy service level will return at some point in 2020. If not, it will be right at the start of the new year. I would very, very much doubt that it will be $20. I think you're looking at $25 or $30 a card if you're going to see this 40-day level. But I think it's still something where they would be leaving a lot of money on the table with that service level to just completely remove it. In terms of how quickly I think they'll bring it back, I think it's going to be If you look at this, my group just sent off an economy level submission here at the end of September. If you think out 40 business days, that would put you around Thanksgiving. It depends on how fast they log it, but I would feel by then they would be caught up enough. So my guess is it'll come back around Thanksgiving. And if it doesn't, then probably the start of the new year. But what are your thoughts on that?
Maybe a little less optimistic. The way I kind of see this is, I mean, I think people saw that there was less differentiation between the economy level of service. I'm talking about from a pricing perspective, how much it's going to cost the end user, that and the ultra modern. So a lot of people were probably opting for economy, and they probably were falling behind because of this. So I see the people that were able to get in their economy submissions for $20 a card before October 1st hit, and they were like, phew, I saved a lot of money. I just got in. I got the old service level. I kind of compare that to the people that got cards submitted to SGC before they completely changed their service levels. Like, I don't think just because you didn't pay for the I can't wait or I can wait service, I don't think you're going to get your cards back within a reasonable time frame. I think you're looking at, probably longer than 2, even 3 months for that economy service level. I mean, we'll see. But I can understand why PSA is changing their service levels. It doesn't look good on them if they're not meeting them. I was looking at some data on their website. Actually, my friend Abel helped me out here. He told me that PSA was getting or grading 100,000, roughly 100,000 collectibles per week in March. And now that number is closer to 300 to 350,000. So it just goes to show you, like, PSA was really popular before. Well, they've gotten a whole lot more popular this year, almost to the point where they're like a quasi-monopoly. It's crazy. But, with PSA's price increase, and I know it's made a lot of people sour, a lot of people have vented on that. Looking at like the bigger picture, sure, I'm like, damn it, like it affects like the cards that I can submit. It affects my profit potential. But I think as a whole, and I mentioned this in a video earlier this year, where I think that if there is, or when there is another bubble that pops in the sports card market, I don't think it'll be the doing of the manufacturers cranking out too many cards. I don't think it'll be related to the same reasons of the early to mid 90s where we saw oversaturation of the market. I think it'll be because of the amount of slab cards that are in the marketplace. Not every bubble is going to be the same. And actually, if you compare it to something, if you looked at the late 90s with tech companies and the inflated valuations of all of those tech companies, sure, some of them like Amazon, maybe those were deserving of a decent valuation, albeit still overvalued, and it took a while for them to get back to where they were. But there were a lot of companies that didn't deserve those valuations. And if you compare that to sports cards, there's a lot of slab cards that I don't think deserve their current valuations. If you look at what people are doing this year, again, the amount of volume that's increased with people submitting, about 350,000 collectibles being graded. Those aren't all going to be cards, but they're going to be mostly cards. You can tell because that rate of increase kind of correlates to the market heating up, the sports card market heating up in the middle of this year. But if you look at like what people's mentality is when they submit all those cards, these are cards often they're between $3 to $20 raw that are being submitted. A lot of times people will submit an entire stack of the same card. And a lot of people see that others have had success or they've had prior success with flipping cards, getting them graded, flipping them for a quick dollar. And it's been quite lucrative and margins have been very good. So if you look at the motive that's driving people to submit cards, it's largely, I'd say, 75%, at least of those cards, I would say, probably aren't intended to be in that person's collection forever. So what that means is they have the intent to sell, usually right away, not always, but they don't have the intent of holding, 9 Cody Bellinger base Topps Update rookies. They plan to sell most of those cards. So if you think about it from that perspective, it's 75% of those cards aren't going to be held, so they're going to be listed. A lot of the times they get listed right away on eBay. People want to recoup their grading costs, and you're looking at So 350,000, maybe let's be conservative, 200,000 of 350,000 collectibles being graded. Those are sports cards. Maybe the average market value or street value of the card after it's graded is $50. Again, that's very conservative. Some will be less, but a lot will be more. A lot will be a lot more than that. And you're looking at like, I don't know, like $10 million per week that's being like cranked out to the marketplace. And people look at the backlog of PSA and they kind of mock them for it. But in a hypothetical scenario, if they were to grade all of those cards one day and then submit those all to the marketplace, then you have 2 million, basically whatever their backlog is today. I don't know what it is, 2-3 million. That might even be conservative. But by looking at the amount of cards they're grading per week, 350,000, and looking at how long it takes them to grade cards, their backlog could be 2 million. It could even be 3 million. Multiply that by $50, you're looking at least $100 million. 75% of that gets listed by the person who submitted that. That's $75 million. Again, conservative estimates, $50 per card. It could be well over $100 million what would be released to the marketplace. So if that happened, you look at the total market cap of sports stars. I don't know what it is. Is it $1 billion? But like that's like 10% right there, and a lot of those cards aren't high quality cards. So the reality is that we'll never see that type of thing happen because there will always be a backlog. PSA is never going to be able to get through everything in 1 week. But I think that disguises the real problem in that we as a market, we're not properly appraising a lot of the slab cards, most of the slab cards today. Sometimes we're looking at pop counts, but we're not looking at projected pop counts. What is that pop count going to become? And I would argue that even projecting pop counts to double or triple for certain cards from 2019, 2020, I think that they're still overvalued personally. So I was actually an advocate back last year when PSA increased prices for bulk submissions from like, what was it, from like $8 to $8.50, and that didn't even affect all cards. I thought that was way too small. And even now, where they've basically doubled since the last couple price increases, now you're looking at much higher cost there for Ultra Modern, $17 a card. $15 a card for Ultra Modern. I think that's still, I wouldn't be surprised if they increase prices again. And I think that it might come as a shock to some. It might piss a lot of people off. But I think PSA is really saving us from ourselves a little bit. And all those numbers, that was just related to PSA. That's not related to any other grading company. So I don't know. I don't know if you had any thoughts on what I just said with PSA and just like it's almost like a necessity. Like some of these cards, and it's unfortunate because you look at like Topps flagship, and the bread and butter often is those raw cards that are between $2 to $10 raw, and that's kind of what drives up the prices of the wax too. It's not like the raw card itself; it's the ability to get it graded. Same thing goes with people flipping complete sets of Topps, which you see now. I don't know if you have thoughts here, JT.
Yeah, there's a lot of what you said there to kind of jump into in terms of just looking at the pop reports as a good indicator. For example, the last time I checked, PSA was closing in on a population of 12,000 Zion Williamson base rookie PSA 10s, which, I mean, if you look at, we'll use the Mike Trout card for an example, which I really try to avoid whenever I'm giving examples because the card is an anomaly in almost all circumstances. That has a population of about 5,000, and it is one of the most sought after cards in the hobby right now, arguably, at least on the baseball side. Whereas the Zion base rookie, I don't know if I've ever actually met someone who wants to actually collect Zion. So how many of those cards, they might be in collections right now, but everybody's got a price on any card in their collection, I would assume. I mean, even the most serious collectors, if you offer them $1 million for their card, they would gladly hand it over to you. How many of those Zions are really in people's collections? How many of them are available on the market right now or would be if he gets hot? And how quickly would they be flooded? And how many more are at PSA? And you talk about what they will look like in the future. it also has to be, what does the player's future look like? A big example I would give is, and this is one that I've had experience with getting burned with, is Jimmy Garoppolo, quarterback for the 49ers. When he was traded from the Patriots, the 49ers, I believe, were 0-10. They picked him up from the Patriots. He goes 6-0 after he's acquired from them. And then heads into the offseason. Of course, at 6-10, they're not going to be able to make the postseason. So he rides this wave of momentum all the way through the offseason. And there's a high note to end on. People are very excited about him. Myself, I submitted 6 of his base rookie SP Authentics, as well as one of the image variations, which were going for around $50 for a base at the time in a PSA 10. And climbing, the variation was around 130. When they came back from PSA, it was the week after he tore his ACL. And I barely recouped the cost of what it took to get them graded because I just didn't want them. And I was in it solely for that purpose, to fund the ever cards that I wanted to have graded. I thought, okay, I don't really care about these Garoppolos. This will help me get the cards I want graded for my collection. I'll be able to hang on to those. And turns out it really did backfire on me. So if you look at maybe someone who's a hot name this week, would be the Randy Arozarena from the Tampa Bay Rays. I've seen a lot of people digging out his rookies from Flagship, from Topps Chrome. They might be in Commons boxes where people didn't really take care of them all that well, even though it's 2020 cards. And I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with condition, but still, I mean, he was a common guy when those cards first came out, even Chrome, which came out in August. And you see that people are pulling these out, and they're probably going to grade them. You know, if he's a hot name right now, especially if maybe they're about to put together a submission, they need a few cards to toss in. Hey, this Arozarena guy is looking pretty good right now. Let me toss him in. Well, what is that going to look like when you get him back? It'll probably be around the start of spring training, but what if he has a terrible spring training? What if he gets traded somewhere else from the Rays? I mean, they've been known to make some wild moves before. He plays for a team that really has no hobby love. And the top guy who people are going to be looking at in terms of the Rays next year is Wander Franco. And that's how it's been for the last few years, too. So I think this change is really going to force people to look at what they're submitting, especially because they don't have that economy level to fall back on. And if you're looking at cards that have been released in the past few years, $15 a pop, if you want to make sure that you're getting your money's worth, you got to make sure your card is in great shape. It's got to be a 10 or bust on a lot of cards. Or you got to have something that's really, really cool that you just think it's good to have slabbed. And there are plenty of cards out there like that. But from what I see, those are not usually the cards getting submitted.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of good stuff there. And I think that, you talked about a little bit towards the end how things might change in regards to how people will approach the grading process in the future. And I don't think these price increases will necessarily have an effect or a negative effect on high-end cards. I think those will probably get submitted regardless. Mid-end cards will get submitted regardless. Like you said, people might have to be a little bit more focused in on the condition of those cards, especially when you get to the lower end of the spectrum, which will be hit the hardest. You really have to make an ROI decision. Okay, will I really even be able to recoup my money if this comes back a 9? Or if it gets a 10, will it be worth it? It's going to cost me 5 or 6 months. Maybe there's some opportunity cost. I'm better off putting money elsewhere. And a card that's already graded, maybe I'll try to see if that one pans out. But I don't think any of this will hurt PSA's standing with regards to their competition. I think if anything, and I've seen evidence anecdotally that PSA is grading tougher, and some people have said it with Beckett as well, but things like that have come out, and ever since like SGC kind of jumped onto the modern scene hard, then PSA all of a sudden got tougher with their grading. Maybe that was a strategic move. That's something that's certainly changed in the past, based on what collectors have said about Beckett's leniency. That's changed. A lot of people thought at one point they were tougher grade than PSA. Now most people, unbiased people, will say that PSA is probably a little bit tougher with modern cards. Obviously with vintage as well versus Beckett. But I think the backlog. So some people might argue, well, there's going to be fewer low-end cards submitted. So will my low-end, 2020 Randy Arozarena PSA 10 base card, will that be worth more money now? I don't know. I would say that the backlog, people are still underestimating the size of the backlog. I think that's going to cancel out the effect of the fewer amount of ultra modern cards that are submitted, at least for now. And maybe for the newest products, that's not the case. But for the newest products that don't have a lot of stuff that's been sent to PSA before the price increase, you're dealing with much higher print runs. So pops could be lower, but print runs are higher. So do you really want to play that game? I don't know. I think I think if anything will happen, it's just there's going to be some stuff that's, again, it's not worth sending in. And looking back a year ago, again, grading prices were nearly half on ultra modern as they are today, $8 versus $15. I think you're going to see, and I said this a little bit earlier, but you're going to see devaluation of base cards, especially the stuff that between $0 to $20 raw, where you're really like hoping to get that 10 to bump up the value. I think, Kyle Lewis is an example. All those guys from Series 1 this year are an example of that. Sell between $3 to $8 raw graded. They might sell between 40 to 60 bucks in a 10, maybe like 20 bucks in a 9. And I think that the value, if the value of the graded cards goes down with these base cards, like I kind of predict, and we kind of predict anyways, will happen over time, I think you're going to see that put pressure on the cost of the raw cards. So, and I think that'll put pressure on the wax costs, which could be good for a lot of people that currently can't find flagship blasters. Maybe, those will stop getting hoarded. Who knows? There's various reasons for why that's happening. And, right. sometimes unknowledgeable people picking those up. But back to PSA, PSA right now, they're increasing prices. A lot of people will say to slow down demand, and maybe to increase their profit margins. Of course, that's definitely happening. Our total revenue is increasing too. Maybe profits definitely are. Margins are increasing with this change. But I think this is all part of a natural price discovery process. You look at a company like Netflix, they keep on increasing their prices because they can. They're taking advantage of customer loyalty. They're taking advantage of reliance on them. And to be frank, they're taking advantage of the value they provide to their customers. So PSA is in a similar situation, like not a complete monopoly, like Netflix is in a complete monopoly, but they do have a lot of leverage with their customers. They are very widely liked despite all the scandals, despite all the criticisms, despite the horrid customer service, arguably, I would say. And I don't know. I would be surprised if ultra modern costs, if they went down. I'd be surprised if they actually stayed the same at 15 bucks. If they're $20 in March, I wouldn't be too surprised by that, especially if the sports card industry keeps on growing and the demand for grading keeps on growing.
Right. And if you look at the value submissions too, of like the ultra modern cards, those are for the collector club membership. So I think a big part of it too is Netflix, as you mentioned, is a great example because that's also a membership based thing where you have to buy a subscription. And I guess you could call PSA's Collectors Club membership a subscription of sorts as well. There's an annual fee, whereas Netflix is more of a monthly fee. And when you have that kind of brand dominance, which I think that's kind of the key word here of PSA is dominance, they can push the envelope to a certain point. And then once they see that, we can't push this far, maybe they bring it back in a little. So I think PSA, as I said earlier, this is a game of chess right now, and it's a long game. It's a strategic game to kind of find a good balance. But I think a lot of it has done by the pressures that have been put on them by other TPGs, especially the rise in popularity of SGC during the spring. I think it's kind of, and just by the way the PSA has handled things and their increased transparency that we've seen, I think it's a big indicator that they are trying to just, it's part of the product life cycle. I mean, they would be towards the end in the product life cycle where either you start trending downward because people lose interest in your product because it becomes too expensive, or you trend upward because you evolve your product to adapt with a new market and new demands. And if PSA does it correctly, then they've set themselves up for the years to come. If they don't do it properly, well, it's going to take some time to rebound.
For sure. You look back and you see SGC's strategy of being the low-cost provider, and it didn't really work out for them because of scale issues. And he kind of compared that to PSA, and I think these companies are realizing they don't need to be the low-cost provider in order to gain market share to the greatest extent over time. That's maybe not the best sensible strategy. It worked out for PSA and Beckett for a while, but those companies separated, went in different directions there were other variables there for why they succeeded or lost market share in Beckett's case. So I think if you're a collector, if you're flipping, whatever, but you're a PSA customer, what I would do is, like JT said, be more careful. There's review services out there if you don't know what you're looking for. They're probably pretty expensive, but look over the card real well, kind of, and also be very picky about what you submit. Don't just submit everything. Now, if you think about the ultra modern era, and that's 2017 and up, that's not a completely arbitrary number. So you would save money by submitting cards from like 2014 to 2016, but also the print runs are going to be lower too, especially with baseball. I think with baseball 2017, the Aaron Judge craze that happened late 2016 coming into 2017, I think we saw maybe the greatest percentage increases in some of the flagship brand products in 2017 year over year. Of course, we've seen that again with 2018 and probably with 2019 with 2020, but I think 2017 was probably when baseball started to get a little crazy. So if you're submitting, maybe Freddie Freeman base Topps cards, you're saving money and you're submitting a card that there's fewer of, and probably likely to be in better condition because they've been in, dime boxes and stuff, or likely to be in worse condition actually because they haven't been top loaded maybe, and they've, been wherever, kind of like the Christian Yelich effect, why pops in those are so low. But that might be the way to go. Yeah. So
you have to consider with that too. There's a reason a lot of those cards, especially from the 14 to 16 time period. Let's take the Mookie Betts rookie for example. If that card is still raw right now, there's a very good chance it's raw for a reason, and it could be at the point where someone thought it was a 9, not a 10, and now all of a sudden it's well worth it to submit it in a 9. And as you mentioned with like a Freddie Freeman rookie, that's a card that's a dollar box card for days until recent times. Maybe you're looking for like a DJ LeMahieu out of people's 2011 update boxes where he was a common up until last year, and now his cards they have a demand in a PSA 10. So the modern is very difficult to find. Let's say it's difficult to find stuff that is grade worthy, and also there's a reason why it hasn't been graded, and it takes a bit of luck with that too.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. 2011 Topps Freeman. I mean, you have versus 2018 Topps Update Austin Meadows. Not as good of a player, but he's got some potential. With Freeman, you're taking into account a lower print run. You have a lower PSA pop, most likely, even though the Meadows is from 2018, not too long ago. And you also have a lower projected, which we talked about earlier, the projected PSA pop, which could change over time for all those factors that you mentioned about the cards being stowed away in dollar boxes. In addition to that, you're paying less for the submission of the card. Now, what would set you back, Freeman might not be the best example of this because there's a ton of hype surrounding this year. He might win his first MVP. You're looking at the back end on like the hype curve for a lot of these players. So your window to flip some of them is lower unless, again, Freeman might be a bad example because Freeman has the hype, but also he could be a potential Hall of Famer. So if you're thinking about that too, and you're truly thinking about it from a long-term investing standpoint, perhaps a smarter way to look at it, then it can't set you back. But maybe somebody like Charlie Blackmon, hype, not a Hall of Famer, too old for that, great player, just not a Hall of Famer for various reasons. But he'd be a guy where it's like, how long can you actually flip this guy for? When are people going to really just give up on him completely, and he's going to turn into like the next Justin Upton, who was also a very good player.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to COMC, topic number 2. So JT, by the way, I meant to give JT a plug earlier. JT is a full-time dealer now, as he said. He runs a PSA group. He is also on eBay. So what is your eBay handle, JT? And I'll put all this in the comments too. Description.
It's Triple Crown, and that's ITS Triple Crown is the eBay username. TC24 Sports Cards on eBay. We've got over 15,000 cards in stock. We just talked about PSA, probably a couple hundred different PSA graded cards, some SGC graded cards, some BGS cards, a little bit of something for everyone on everyone's budget.
Got it. So in addition to JT having a very comprehensive eBay store and offering, he's also a big user of COMC. Check out my cards or collectibles, whatever. I call them COMC. I use COMC far less than eBay, but I am a casual user. I believe I have a balance of $16 in there right now. Stuff's not selling. I wonder why. I think we're going to get into that. COMC was founded in 2005. They've been around for about 15 years. They're based in Redmond, Washington. Recently, they have been criticized in social media, mostly because of their customer service. That's been a sore spot for them, at least of late. And I'm going to share something real quick. Here is one of the criticisms that came across on social media. This is from Brian Gray, who is the CEO of Leaf. Very outspoken personality, controversial viewpoints. Often, this is one that I don't particularly disagree with, actually. He's going to say, I'm going to share a possibly unpopular opinion. Check out my cards. Shipping times and costs for buyers are now officially stupid. I used to believe they were literally the best at what they do. Door open for competition if someone wanted to invest the money. No sure thing, anyone will. And then we also have, so that was from September 28th. A few days later, on October 5th, Pat Neshek, former pitcher, current pitcher, reliever, loved you. He's saying, loved using check out my cards on comc.com in the past, but their service right now sucks. Waiting 4 months on shipment is brutal. Also amazed how bad their customer service is for sellers and how they won't suspend storage fees until the shipping mess goes away. Avoid. Pretty strong opinion there. A lot of this is because I believe they recently got rid of their 3-month standard shipping. I'm sure they've fallen behind on all sorts of service levels of shipping, except if you pay like whatever it is, 25 cents a card to get them back real quick. But this is a company that was starting to struggle back in February. Washington was hit with COVID before most of the other states. And that was sort of their reasoning for falling behind on shipments and on customer service as well. I've heard from a lot of folks that they're not even answering emails to this point. I'm not sure exactly what's going on now, but people are criticizing PSA, and not to give PSA too much credit where it's not due. But if PSA takes 4 to 6 months to get your cards back, they're doing a lot more than just shipping them. They're receiving the cards, they're authenticating the cards, they're grading the cards, they're encasing the cards, they're putting them in the registry, and they're sending them back. I just don't know if it's warranted that COMC has dropped the ball like this. I don't know if you have different thoughts or different viewpoints here. JT, what do you think?
Not warranted at all. I have some very strong opinions about COMC. And I think the biggest difference is we're talking about two very major companies here, where two have had some pretty big changes over the past year. One with PSA, where I give them a lot of praise for, I believe, communicating to the best of their ability. I mean, they're not perfect, and I've talked about some areas that I would see for improvement, but they are trying, and they are trying to meet the demands of the consumers that are using their product, which I have tremendous respect for. I think that is absolutely critical when you're running a business. You have to know your consumers and know what you're doing. COMC, on the other hand, I really don't think they know what they're doing anymore. I really think that this is a product that continually spirals downwards. So my personal experience with them is I was recommended to use their service back in 2014. At this time I was about to be a college student, and if I wanted to sell my cards, it's kind of difficult to do that. And it's also really time consuming, especially if you have a lot of lower end cards. Well, it's a perfect place to go and sell those cards. And it's also a perfect place to send those cards off and possibly buy them if you're someone who is maybe a set builder. If you're a player collector, a team collector, all really great sources. Where eBay, that's where you're going to go to buy your higher end cards, or an auction house if you're going for something that's really high end, something that's really rare. Whereas COMC, it's kind of like the virtual dollar box, the world's largest virtual dollar box. You can find commons to fill out your sets. You can find parallel cards that you wouldn't normally find on eBay because the shipping prices are all outrageous. And the beauty of it is you can kind of just build a little stack for yourself. So it's just like you're going to a card show, building up a little stack, and then you can just request shipping at any time. You can also flip the cards, which I have a lot to say on that a little bit later about how they've kind of responded to the flipper aspect of things too. So, and I remember at the 2019 National, their banner kind of said, buy on COMC, sell on COMC, flip on COMC. And that was kind of their mantra. So I started using their service in 2014, had a lot of cards come in, great success using it. And every single year, it seems they changed one thing about their formula that kind of rubs me the wrong way and makes the experience less enjoyable. So at first, it was at the fact that you were charged all up front for your fees to sell on there. And you could work your way back to zero, basically. And I loved that. That was perfect. It means I could send in everything at once. Now, whenever they process your cards and list it, you're going to be charged. You're going to be paying that up front, and you have to have it in your account in order to have those cards listed on their platform. Also, if your account's in the negative, you can't buy anything on there. So if you're someone who buys and sells on COMC, you're screwed unless you pay off that balance. So all of a sudden, when they also increase the price per the basic service level, 5 cents a card, if I submit enough cards where I have a $300 bill, I'm paying that up front before I even have a chance to sell anything. And that's kind of disheartening to me. And then they kind of changed a few things from there. Then they added a 5 cent or 5% microtransaction to every single sale that happens. And that kind of made it a little less desirable to sell on there. Their cash out thing has always been an issue to me. You can redeem it for store credit with blowout cards if you want to buy wax. That is very appealing to a lot of people. But if you want to cash it out, they take 10% of it automatically, no matter what you have. One that really rubbed me the wrong way, and this was late last year, was to save money, they partnered with a service that was related to USPS, that basically used USPS, but it was also kind of outsourced to this company called Nugistics. And it is one of the worst shipping experiences I have ever seen, where it sat at the local facility where I was at for 2.5 weeks, and I was basically told tough luck when I asked what's going on with my package. Just using these services to save a quick buck while also then raising the price of their basic shipping level by $1. So COMC just continues to do things that harm their product and have taken advantage of the praise that they received, and rightfully so, for about the first 10 years of doing business, and now really find themselves in a tough position where you've got some pretty influential people saying that your product sucks, and that's a problem. So that's my personal experience with it. I don't know what has been your experience with it. I know that you're not as active on there, but
yeah,
have you?
Well, I mean, COMC going into this year, they've had a great opportunity to gain business with their industry position coming into this year. Also with their offering and how it caters to flippers, because you don't need to take physical possession of the item. You can flip it. There's sales tax benefits from doing flipping. There's income tax benefits from doing the flipping. Kind of reminds me of like my crypto days, where you could actually like exchange, like there'd be all these different exchanges with different altcoins, and then some would have some that other ones didn't, and you'd go there and you'd exchange one altcoin for another. The IRS would have no idea what the hell was going on until you actually withdrew the money from, say, Coinbase, and then they try to tax you from there. But COMC had a lot of inherent advantages, and one of them was with COVID this year, not just all the money coming into sports cards, but with the way the game has changed, with the increased people that aren't as educated, that are overreacting to on-the-field performances, off-the-field performances. Prices are changing by the day. Before, it would take for a pitcher to get noticed, you needed to have like 5 or 6 quality starts in a row. Now it takes one, and prices will change overnight. So the daily mindset, maybe the sports gamblers that came in that are trying to make a quick buck fast, the guys that were playing daily fantasy leagues have come over, and again, a lot of the new people are just, maybe it's not a more efficient marketplace. It could be one that just overreacts to news. I don't know. But COMC had a great advantage there. Now, there's another dog in town now with Star Stock. I haven't used them yet, I'll be honest, but COMC clearly had the advantage for being, having the greater market share, having greater name recognition, brand loyalty. I don't know, like what's happened to the brand since then in regards to the brand image, but I think that eBay has done a really good job at valuing the buyer. You can see that with return policies. You can see that with a lot of things, but a lot of times they side with the buyer. The buyer always makes out unless this person's like a known scammer that has a record of screwing things up, and then he gets kicked off of eBay eventually. But with like shill bids and stuff like that, the seller often gets screwed. Now with COMC, with this delayed shipping policy, you're not really valuing the buyer as much as an eBay would. And if you look at eBay, and a lot of people criticize eBay, and rightfully so, eBay has a lot of dysfunction in the company. And when it was connected with PayPal, eBay was always larger than PayPal. eBay owned PayPal, but PayPal was growing faster, and PayPal didn't like the fact that it was owned by eBay. That caused a lot of the friction, growing at different speeds, maybe some leadership issues. But COMC makes eBay look like a company that doesn't have any dysfunction. That's how bad COMC looks. And I'm going to show you what I really think about COMC. I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to show some of the functionality for those of you that it'll probably be more beneficial for those of you that aren't familiar with COMC. But here is, you can see my screen, right?
Yep.
All right, so here's my dashboard. And you can see here that the UI looks incredibly dated. I don't think the functionality is really noticeably improved over the last 1 to 3 years based on what I can see. This is a company that's based in, Redmond, Washington. I mean, you think that, they're kind of like an IT company. Do they have a tech department? What's going on here? But you can't like it, the navigation sucks. Like websites shouldn't be set up this way. The most important button that I like to hit that's useful for me is actually my inventory or inventory manager, but it's all the way down here. It's small. If you're looking at this website from an app, or sorry, they don't have an app. That's okay, but you need to be mobile optimized. Any of the apps in this space or any of the website services in this space like Market Movers or Card Ladder, you can open it up from a phone, and all of the buttons and functionality is going to be right size so you can see it. You're going to be able to see the most important buttons. Probably going to have close to the same functionality, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little skinned down version, but it's going to be a lot easier to navigate through a phone. COMC is not like that at all. eBay is very user-friendly from a phone, maybe even better to use from a phone's app, but this is certainly not. It's very tiny. I will not be showing that, but it just looks super dated. The ability to do like bulk updates, unless maybe somebody needs to educate me on the functionality if it does exist, but to be able to change prices for various cards at once, it's not very easy. It's very manual, and a lot of people own multiple versions of the same card. As you can see, I do with Jack Flaherty, Topps Chrome Update here. I don't know. I just think that there should be some capabilities that are in the platform that aren't there today. So if I was to, so I requested a bunch of shipments back in, I think like June, July. I haven't got those yet. I should be able to change my service level. There should be like a dashboard for that. There should be a way. So I purchase a lot of stuff not using credit. Sometimes I use PayPal directly. There should be an audit trail of what I ordered. There should be the pictures stored of what I ordered, which cards I ordered. The navigating of the screens is very difficult. The search functionality is actually not that good. You look at a website like My Slabs, again, in this space, I keep on bringing up these parallels. MySlabs is not that easy to search, but they haven't been around for that long. I think they might be adding metadata tags to the back end to fix that, because the user's only inputting certain data points. With COMC, the data points should exist. This is a company that's been around since 2005. I find that you need to enter in things a certain way in order to get the search to work, versus like a Boolean type search, which you'd get with eBay and some other apps probably. Again, I think the whole thing kind of screams like 1998. And you brought up the commission structure. So my biggest issue with the commission structure isn't that they're price gouging, which I'm sure they are. It's that it's not transparent to me. It's not easy to understand, comprehend. It's not easily found anywhere. And I've heard nightmares with power sellers too that request to do simple things like merging portfolios. They have multiple. They've boasted about eBay's accounting capabilities. And I never thought eBay had the best, accounting capabilities, but they said that COMC is actually a lot harder to work with. They were trying to charge him to like close an account to merge them into one, and then he had to like fight them for like a few weeks, and they finally did it. So I don't know. They just kind of rub me the wrong way. They can keep on blaming this on COVID. They'll keep on blaming it on COVID for the next 2 or 3 years. I'm sure they will, but they have some serious issues. I don't know if they're staffing issues. I don't know if they're leadership issues. Actually, I know they're leadership issues, but I don't know if that's the main issue here. I don't know. Anything more on COMC before we move on to the next topic?
Oh yeah, I've got plenty of ammunition to go on them. I mean, what you said about the layout, it has never changed in my time using it, and I think the layout is just a symbol for COMC in general. It's complacency. They become very complacent with what they have. And I think if you look at what are the strengths of COMC and what are the weaknesses, the strengths is that if you look at their competition, eBay, it costs a lot of money for the final value fees and the insertion fees. Well, now COMC charges a 5% commission on every transaction that you have for really a lot less work that they're doing. Like all they have to do is move the card from one place to another. With eBay, I know as a seller right now, they gave me a huge break during COVID. And even now, they've given me a promotion because they saw how much positive feedback that they got from sellers. And I was given a survey, which I filled out. I told them, hey, I really appreciate all that you did to help out my business during this really challenging time. And they gave me a ton more free insertions where now I don't even come close to using everything that I get. That was given to me as a bonus, basically, stuff that I didn't plan for when I chose my current store subscription. So now all of a sudden, all of these fees that are normally associated with eBay, and on top of it, if you're a seller like me who uses managed payments on eBay, now you don't have to worry about the PayPal fees on top of it, and you'd have to worry about the PayPal fees when you cash out with COMC if you choose to cash out with PayPal. So all of a sudden, you have eBay kind of catching up in that regard. So one of their big rivals, I would say, in terms of sports cards, now there's a lot of similarities. And COMC's was the convenience as well, where, oh, I'm just going to send my cards to them. I can just update the price there. Even though it's manual, it takes a long time to do that. It's going to take a long time for it to get entered into their system. No big deal. It's easier for me. At what price point does that convenience become not worth it? And it's really starting to get to that point, especially because they suspended the 12-week service. They suspended their basic shipping level service. I have an order from July 24th, absolutely no updates on it. We're 2.5 months now since that update. That to me is absolutely ridiculous. Obviously they responded to COVID, and as you mentioned, they're in Washington, was one of the first places where it hit. But I don't think I've seen anyone just lay down and act as defeated as they have in the hobby. Out of all of the places I've seen who have tried to respond, they just seem to kind of take it and they have run with it. And it is a very serious situation. I don't want to downplay it. I know that it has impacted a lot of businesses, but do I think that they have used it to their advantage a little bit too much? I would argue so, especially when you consider that COMC also sells on eBay. I have bought cards from them on eBay now because it is actually easier for me to go and buy them there because they'll ship it out the next day still, or they'll ship it out within a few days because they don't want to lose their top seller status. they don't want to have cases open against them where now they can't use eBay anymore. Same thing if you buy from them on Amazon. You will still get it in the same time window. So now, all of a sudden, they have taken me off of their platform to go use their competitor's platform to buy from them, which makes absolutely no sense. That is terrible business practice from them, and I'm not the only one who does it. There are a lot of people, especially if it's a card that's, if it's a $10 card, I'm not going to get it on COMC just to wait, a few months. Like, yes, I have to pay a little bit more to pay the eBay fees because that's just how they do it. I don't care. At what's $12 if I'm going to spend 10 anyways? It's terrible. It is absolutely terrible, and they're just hurting themselves at that point.
Absolutely, man. And this is what the website looks like from a phone. Oh man, you can't really see with the lighting, but the small text, not mobile optimized. Just I don't know. I think they said that an app was in like beta testing last year, maybe like last December or January.
I'll believe it when I see it.
But I work with my primary job. I deal with a lot of tech companies, and when they say something's on the roadmap, usually it doesn't mean a whole lot. So I don't know if it's actually in beta testing or if it's just on the roadmap. All right, so next and final topic, we'll spend a little bit of time here, and I'm going to share my screen once again. This has to do with eBay, who we've touched upon from a relative basis quite a bit. And this has to do with their API. So as some of us know, a lot of us know, especially those that own the apps in this space, eBay provides a free API to receive information on completed listings, where this is often handy for individuals and users like myself, customers like myself of eBay, are to find out what something sold for, if it was listed at buy it now or best offer, and an offer was accepted. You're able to get that information. You can't get that information directly from eBay, but you can get that information from a lot of these apps. And some of the websites that exist, like 130 point, there used to be one called Watch Count, Flipper Tools. There's a bunch of those that exist. But also the apps in the space like Market Movers and Card Ladder, we've touched on briefly a few times. They rely on this eBay API, I believe, to get pricing data, some of which they scrub, they store, but they're able to get 3 months worth of pricing data. And if they're able to keep that over time, then they'll be able to have like a decent time series for that type of information for particular cards. So this news here comes from Daily Wax. They're talking about how there's going to be a change October 15th, 2020, so a week from today, where that eBay API will no longer be available. And this is something that doesn't surprise me at all. I think it was more of a matter of time. Sure, it probably surprised me that it snuck up on me a little bit here. But eBay, one of their greatest assets has become their data, especially in a world like today where the demand for data is greater than ever. The amount of data that exists, the amount of data analyzers and explorers and scientists, people that manipulate that data and try to perform predictive analytics to try to forecast what's going to happen next, or even just to look at it from a descriptive analytics perspective, trying to understand what happened, why it happened, but also looking forward with the predictive side of things. Data, the demand for data is at an all-time high. This year, I'm guessing that eBay had one of their top years ever from a sales perspective based on what we've seen with e-commerce. On top of that, sports cars, which are, a big segment of eBay, maybe 10% of its business, not a majority, but a relatively significant segment for eBay. But it doesn't really surprise me that they've made an effort to do this. I think what we're going to see next is them try to monetize this data. It doesn't really benefit them a whole lot if they just hoard it for themselves. Right now, I believe PWCC is the only entity, from what I've heard, that has full unfettered access to their data. And you can see this with their price history source. You can see this across more than just 90 days. You see it across probably 5, 6, 7 years. I don't know how long it goes. But I think what we'll see is those sources that were reliant on it that really need it, like the market movers, the card ladder. I think that subscription will be available to apps like that. There's also ones like Collectible that'll come up. That's fairly new that probably could use that data as well. And just other people that just want to do their own sourcing. I know people that kind of just do their own thing with the data. They're able to pull it out. People that are technically savvy and slice and dice it however they want. But I think that this will probably get monetized. I don't know when. Hopefully sooner rather than later, for the sake of a lot of these apps that are so dependent on it. And I think that it'll make it so their memberships will be more expensive, because what was previously free is now actually quite expensive. I kind of look at a parallel with asset management, and you see asset managers that need benchmarks, they need indices, and Bloomberg terminals aren't free. Getting custom benchmarks, or really any benchmarks, from wherever it's from, S&P, whoever that pricing vendor is, Reuters, etc. That's going to cost some money, and then ultimately for an asset manager, and there's becoming growingly more parallels with sports card market and asset management. Data actually is a more expensive, is a greater cost for most asset management firms than technology, and they rely on technology a bunch too. So I don't know if JT, if you have any thoughts with the eBay API, what's happening with it, and what will happen with it.
So I'm someone who likes to try to figure out why certain things happen. So not just, do I agree with it, do I disagree with it, but just understand what would be the reason behind this. And when we first talked about this, I was kind of thinking, I'm kind of curious as to why this happened. To take a guess, and this is just me guessing, nothing really more than that, they want to reduce the traffic that is being taken off of their site, and thus the sales being conducted off of their site. So I believe eBay very much knows, at least in the sports card market, and eBay is a huge entity. It's not just a dealer for sports cards. Sports cards make up a very, it's a decent size of the site, but it's not even in the majority of the site for the total items that are listed on there. But I think they do recognize that eBay completed sales is still very much a prevalent tool for pricing in 2020. And I know within the sports card market and the industry, eBay comps are king. That is what, there's not a day that goes by where I don't use them or I don't hear about them. Usually both in the same day. So to use one of these websites to kind of figure things out, I don't think they want people to know this information without giving them some kind of money, because it is more, they can use that information to sell an item off their site, which is money that they lose out on. That is one of my guesses with it. I'll share my screen really quickly here. You have an eBay store too as well, right? Or do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
So you have the subscription and everything, so you're familiar with Terapeak, right?
I have a basic store membership. I've never used Terapeak, but I've heard about it.
Okay. So this is kind of I just typed this in kind of as an example here on the Terapeak.
There we go.
There we go. So this is my seller dashboard here. You can see, so I've got all of these up here, and then the research is something that is new. So with a store subscription, this is something that you get access to, and you have the very basic store subscription you said. So it's fairly affordable, I think, where it's, you don't get too many benefits from it, but you do get access to this, I believe, even at the most basic level. So it's kind of like a subscription type of thing, where if I search Bowman Chrome Wander Franco autograph, then I come down here. And of course, this is one where some people might put stuff that's not really what I'm looking for, and then you have to get a little bit more specific with it. But this is kind of along the same things, where it shows you the sold date. You can kind of sort by total, average sold price. Well, you can sort here by date sold. What I say, and you have this up here, which I don't think this is very accurate because of all the different stuff that's going on with it. It's not that reliable, I would say. I would never use this as it is right now. but it definitely has potential. And I mean, eBay has all of this data in-house. So really, if they take down these other sites, I think it's going to be more effective because people will just keep developing these sites. They'll keep finding ways around the loophole. When they close the loophole on watch count, which is something that I used to use, I went to 130 point, which now allows me to kind of go around and figure that out. And there will always be people trying to figure it out. I feel if they there's two different ways to approach these types of things. When you have some kind of behavior that is influencing your product, or people are acting a certain way, there's an approach where you want them to abstain from using these sources, where you don't want them to use eBay completed sales, kind of just trying to outlaw it and control what is seen. Another way to approach it is to admit that it's going to happen. There is no way to stop it. People are continuously finding loopholes in your system and deciding that you're going to take a more proactive approach. Say, yes, we know you people like to use this. Here is our service. We're offering it at this very low price, but it is better than all these other ones for this reason, and then whatever feature they can add to it. So I think that would be most beneficial for them if they can do that. I think the Terapeak thing is pretty huge, but right now I really think the immediate future is that they don't want people taking business off their site. So we'll see how it plays out, but I would expect eBay this isn't the end of this by far.
Right, for sure. Another thing I think about is there was a weird, I think it might have been a Twitter interaction with somebody I know, or somebody that I saw took a screenshot of another conversation with, it was with a hobbyist and an eBay employee, asking why the best offer information wasn't readily available. And the eBay associate said that they didn't want to artificially suppress the market value of an item by showing that information, or artificially deflate the value, diminish the value of an item by showing what it really sold for. And I think I responded, I was like, well, you should kind of look up the definition of market value, because market value isn't the original selling price. It's what, two willing buyers agree on in a free market to transact with. That's the price. What it actually sells for. And I thought that was kind of weird, but that kind of made me think, like, if she's being serious, and if what she's saying is partially true, I try to think about the motive of eBay. If other people would have worded things similarly, it could hurt the amount of commission they would get if people all of a sudden understood that because there's a lot of people that look at eBay, a lot of people that are newer to it. Like when I started, I was like, okay, so that's what it actually sold for, because that's what I see. But then it took people, no, actually, in a lot of cases, it's not people, and except if you're really heavily involved in reselling with eBay, sports cards, sneakers, maybe something else, to actually in that community to tell you, like, no, that's not what it actually sold for. We use these sites to find out that information. So you're more likely as a new person to overpay. The higher price that's in the transaction, the better for eBay, the more commission they get. Over time, that probably adds up. But like you said, there's additional factors. It's clearly not just that. I just thought it was really weird that she answered that under like an eBay corporate account that way.
That's
so we don't want to skew market value. It's crazy.
Right. The weird thing too is, there's the market manipulators out there too, who, she'll bid something. Oh, my kid bid on it. So that's something that inflates it the wrong way. Now, I'm sure they're not as bothered about that, because then they make more money doing it. But you publicly show what something sells for at auction. If I hit buy it now on any card on eBay, which, I do plenty of time, or I don't even make an offer, you can see exactly what I paid for it. So I feel that they're picking and choosing here. I don't understand why it wouldn't be where you can't see any completed sales. Maybe that's what they're moving towards. I'm not trying to give them any ideas or anything, but maybe that's it. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but it's very weird to me that they're willing to show you some of the data, but not all of the data.
Right. And back to shilling, maybe this is one of the reasons why they don't have an anti-shilling department. We as hobbyists, we complain about this all the time, that this happens. It can be easily detected, manually, probably with automation as well, with a few different business rules, and they're not really doing a whole lot to stop it. So having auctions end at that amount, even though they eventually get rid of that data after a few days, if that's not what it actually sells for, or if it never gets paid for, that data still is out there for a little bit, and you see that when you're following stuff, watching items. I know I watched 300 items, and a lot of those are shilled. I wish I made a video on this, but Mike Trout 2011 Topps Update US 175. I watched at least 2 of the auctions of that card, and people were watching it earlier this year. Midsummer, it was probably like a $2,600 card, and all of a sudden it jumped to like $3,200 over the course of a week. And I was watching a few of the Probstein auctions. I believe they're Probstein, that were shilled. If you clicked into them, can't do it from the app, but you can do it from the website. You could kind of tell. There's various ways to do that. I don't want to go into detail there, but and same thing with Connor McDavid. I was trying to load up on his Young Guns rookie card. It jumped from, in a PSA 10, it jumped from $650 to $1,000 seemingly overnight. And there were probably 4 or 5 consecutive shilled Probstein auctions. And, it's just, I don't know if we'll ever get a solution for that from eBay.
I'm not 100% sure either. The lack of shill bids, it makes them more money in theory because the items are going up, but that's only if the sale is actually completed. If the buyer cancels the sale, the final value fee is refunded. They're not making anything on it. And I'm sure, if someone is listing the item, but Probstein is not paying insertion fees for listings, and a lot of sellers are not, especially now with the stores getting so many free insertions on listings, and even then they're microtransactions. That's not where the real money is. I would say the real money they're making is going to be from those actual completed sales. So
right,
it's interested to see how it plays out. I don't think there's a lot of information yet.
Yeah, and with those 2 cards, people reacted to the shilled sold listings before they were removed, and all of a sudden you started seeing legitimate listings at that amount, a little bit higher or a little bit less, Facebook or on eBay itself. So indirectly, eBay benefits from that if the market shifts based on those shilled listings. The shilled listings, from my experience, they don't always affect market values, but they will, especially if something's a little undervalued. It can permanently inflate, or at least over the course of like 1 to 3 months, it can definitely change, and you will see legitimate sales with higher prices. And it also helps if the shills are executed intelligently, if there is a number of them, and if there's a number of them consecutively. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people don't look into that. It's hard because I'm watching 200 different unique cards at once. How can I pay attention to the history, the immediate, like last week versus the 3 weeks before that, and look into each listing and see if it's shilled or not? With some of the key cards, that's what it often happens to. A lot of the ones that are in PSA 10, it's easier to manipulate something when it has a reasonably high pop, not like something that's super rare. But with the Jordan rookie, similar stuff happened to that too, I believe, earlier this year. But all right, so we're talking for over an hour. Thank you, JT, for being on the show. Check out JT again on eBay. It's Triple Crown with no spaces, no apostrophe, ITS Triple Crown. He's got a great store. He's also on YouTube, Triple Crown 24. Check him out. Thank you so much for being on the show, JT.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate you having me. I thought it was a good discussion. Looking forward to reading the comments here and continuing the discussion there.
Good stuff. And to all my viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you thought in the comments. Filmington out. Take care, guys. See you later.